Thank you, Kerry, very much. Welcome to you, everyone. I'm speaking to you from Herefordshire. Behind me is Goodrich Castle. I'm sure, like many of you, you've all got local rural beauty spots like this. So it helps for an amusing background when you're trying to engage with people at the start of conversations like this. Very much welcome to you to this, the second opportunity we've got to talk to newly elected members of rural authorities. I don't know if you know much about the Rural Services Network, but we're very much an organisation that is here that is campaigning for rural councils and rural organisations. We are fundamentally made up of rural local authorities of different types, district, unitary and county councils. And also, of course, we also have many other rural organisations who understand the problems and challenges of delivering services in a rural community. We fundamentally live in an urban nation with urban solutions to everything, and people don't understand sometimes the particular pressures and demands we've got of delivering rural services. Hopefully you will receive our emails already to date, and you will see by that the hard work that we do campaigning and lobbying on your behalf. We've been very successful over the years to get an understanding in government, and right across political parties we continue to work to make the point about the extra pressures of rural services. The Rural Services Development Grant is an extra source of money that comes into your revenue budgets, many of you, and that is very, very welcome. And I hope also that you will use our material that you will see when you're in either in a position of cabinet or in a position of scrutiny to help to challenge and evidence some of the information and problems that we have. That information is there for you. You are member authorities, you pay a subscription to us, and for a relatively small fee, you can get, of course, with the work that we do often brings a huge amount of returns. We have one council who apparently thinks that we may not be value for money. They pay about 3,000 in a subscription to us, and they get something like, well, we've worked out over the years, considerable millions of pounds from government. And so we think that's extremely good value for money and probably the best return for a subscription that you'll ever get. But I think the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. I'm delighted that we've got Kerry and Nadine who are going to take you through the work that we do. We are here to encourage you also to work amongst ourselves to have that rural services network of rural people so that we understand that we are facing very similar challenges. We're not there battling on our own, and it is by combining our thoughts together and working together, we can commission strong pieces of evidence that really make the point that actually government has to admit, whatever their politics, that there is an issue here that's got to be addressed. I hope that you'll enjoy your time with us, and as I said, we'll very much use the information that you get on a regular basis. We have a very hard-working team, a small team of officers, and we commission small amounts of information as well, but very strong pieces of evidence to help and support all of us who are doing our job representing our communities. I'll hand you back now to Kerry, or I think is Nadine going to lead off?
Nadine's going to be talking next.
Nadine, thank you.
Okay. Hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that's good. So I'm Nadine Trout, I'm the Assistant Chief Executive at the Rural Services Network, and I'm just going to run through the services that we provide you. So first of all, about us, we are the national champion for rural services. No other organisation represents all service sectors in rural, and we campaign government on your behalf, and we provide you with a range of services, including publications, events, commentary and research. And in order to campaign government, we are financially independent, i.e. we're not funded by government. As such, we rely on our paid membership subscriptions to do the work that we do. So moving on a little bit more about our membership, we've got a really broad membership from across the public, private and voluntary sector, including leading national bodies, local authorities, utility companies, housing associations and grassroots community organisations. You'll see here, the good news is that we are growing. In the past 12 months, we've welcomed 23 new private sector member organisations, and we've got a pipeline of other local authorities with new unitaries coming on board too. And the great thing about the RSN is that it represents a diverse range of rural service providers. Just looking at some of the new member organisations on this slide illustrates the breadth of our membership, including rural shops, broadband, mobile, health, housing, planning, fuel and advice services, to name but a few. I'm now going to just take you through the member benefits that you have by being a member of the Rural Services Network. You get publications delivered straight to your inbox. That way you're not having to look for info, we're giving you up-to-date info straight to you. And a key member benefit is that we also have really well attended seminar programmes. We do a national conference. We also do rural research and analysis and campaigning, as we previously mentioned. So taking you through the publications that you get delivered straight to you, we have a weekly news bulletin, and that includes hot topics, many of them focusing on, of course, rural issues and what's happening nationally on that. We provide a political roundup, so we will say what's happening in Parliament, for example, what's being discussed in Westminster Hall and what impact it's likely to have on rural communities. We provide a monthly funding digest. Many of our councillors find that really useful because they're able to share it with community groups. So you might, for example, have a scout group that's looking for some funding, and that's a great way of signposting them, for example, to access that. We have a monthly publication called Hinterland, and that publication just looks at the news, it comments on it, and again, you know, sort of says, what does that mean for rural communities? We also have quarterly newsletters, e-newsletters that are sent to you on housing and economy. So all of those, as I say, are a really useful way of staying up to date with what's happening on rural issues. Our seminar programme is a key membership benefit and is varied and really well attended. So our programme last year, we had an amazing 634 delegates attend. And we invited expert speakers to focus on a given topic that's really important to rural communities. A seminar still to come this year, including this week, later this week on Wednesday. We've got our rural housing seminar. We've got planning later in the year and health and care. And we deliberately make these seminars as inclusive as possible by holding them online, as opposed to having them in a given location. And we hold them online so as many people as possible from our national membership can join us. And our seminars are just that, they're seminars as opposed to webinars, and that allows you to be seen on screen, to pose your questions and to interact with us, which we find is really, really useful to create a lively in-person debate. You'll see when you get the slide pack after this presentation, there's a link on how to book our seminars. So if you haven't booked them already, please do, because that's part of your membership benefit, is to attend our sessions free of charge. Moving on to the conference, our conference is coming up on Monday, the 18th of September, and we're running that for 4 days. A calendar highlight, really. It's, you know, where we bring together all of our top speakers, and this year we've got rural MPs that will be talking as well on given topics. Last year we had 600 delegates over those 4 days, and we had 28 speakers, again, you know, sort of imparting their expert knowledge. And what's really good about our conference, it's an opportunity for our members to share best practice too. So we'll often have a local authority, for example, talking about an initiative in their area and sharing that best practice with others. The types of topics that we cover at our conference include the rural economy, transport, health, decarbonisation, and more. And bookings for the conference are open now. So again, when we send the slide pack out to you, you can click on the link and make your bookings. And again, attendance is free for our members. As well as having a varied event programme, what we also do is that we produce a number of publications. You'll see on this slide, for example, we produce a series called The Rural Lens. And what we do is that we look at any emerging government strategy or policy, and we look at that strategy or policy through a rural lens, i.e. thinking, well, what does this mean for rural communities? And what's really useful is that these strategies are normally hundreds of pages. And so we take all the legwork out of that for you. So for each of these publications, we produce an at a glance section at the very beginning, which is a simple one-pager, which will summarise these large documents and say, actually, these are the key issues for rural. What we also do with those rural lenses is that we will then lobby or campaign the appropriate minister to say what we think needs to be done to that policy in order to make it fit for rural communities. And you'll see here that we've got a whole range of rural lenses that we've done over the past 12 months, and they include the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, the Levelling Up White Paper, Net Zero, and more, all key topics for rural councils. We also, as well as doing our in-house research, commission external independent research as well. And we feel that that's really important to support our cause and to show to government that we are being impartial, that we are putting our research at arm's length to show that it is, sort of valid and reputable. Here you'll see that we've commissioned Pragmatics Advisory to do a report on the levelling up, for example, and the hidden challenge for rural areas. And it's really interesting because based on the government's own white paper headline metrics, rural is in greater need for levelling up than any other region. And it's by bringing this data together and looking at it from a rural perspective that we can really hammer home the cause for rural communities and the need for that levelling up. We also commissioned some research through Covia Consulting on the rural cost of living crisis. And what that summarised was saying that rural communities are facing a triple blow in the cost of living crisis, as higher domestic and transport energy poverty is made more prevalent, coupled with lower wages, is pushing rural areas into a cost of living emergency even higher than that of their urban counterparts. So whilst that was sobering reading, it was desk research. And what we then wanted to do was to get first-hand feedback from our members. And so what we did is we put together a survey and we got a staggering 7,000 responses to that survey. And that's because we put it out across our network. We put it out across our network of 500 organisations and the 20,000 people that are on our mailing list, and asked them to share it further afield within communities. And when we get feedback like that, it's really, really powerful to share with politicians, because if we're giving them a first-hand account of what's happening in rural areas. We, as well as doing that research, commissioning independent research, we also provide briefing papers for parliamentarians. And so you can see from this slide, we supported some backbench debate and got a response there from Lee Rowley over the work that we are doing. And it's really important because that we hold that place as a rural champion, because MPs are really, really busy, and they like nothing better than for an informed organisation to give them all of the facts and figures readily at their fingertips, so that they can share those with colleagues and are knowledgeable when speaking in the House. We also respond to government consultations on your behalf. Government frequently issue consultations, and you can see from this slide the consultations that we've responded to over the last few months. And what we do is we will take a consultation, we'll form an opinion as the RSN in the first instance as staff, but then what we would do, we will put that out to relevant portfolio holders within a council or relevant officers within a council, just to sense check whether you agree with the comments that we've made before we submit them, or whether you would like us to angle the debate in a slightly different way. So we take on board those comments before making our submissions, and that makes for a really rich return of insight to those government consultations. As well as responding to the consultations, we also provide the secretariat for the all-party parliamentary group for rural services. And again, that's a key way of us having a direct line of communication with rural MPs and letting them know the issues within rural areas and what we feel needs campaigning on. Part of the campaigning work that we do, and Kerry will go on to talk about this in more detail, is that we secure funding for rural areas. So this year we managed to secure an additional £10 million in rural service delivery grant, and that's through our work of campaigning for fair funding for rural communities. So that funding is instrumental for local authorities to be able to deliver the services that they deliver, and without that campaigning, we know that we would not have seen an increase in funding. So it's important that we continue to make the rural voice heard by, you know, just continually making the cause and the need known in rural communities. We also influence further afield. So on this slide, you'll see we're part of the DEFRA Rural Impact Forum, which meets every fortnight. So we're talking with civil servants there, again, talking about policy. We're horizon scanning, saying, you know, kind of what issues are likely to impact on rural areas and what we can do to mitigate any adverse impacts that might have. We also produce and give evidence, not just to briefing papers for MPs, but also in the House of Lords. So you'll see here that we were part of the House of Lords Select Committee on Social Care, for example. And we also presented to the House of Lords as part of the Rural Coalition on Levelling Up. We work with our members as well when it comes to making our voice heard further afield. So you can see here we've got BT. BT are one of our members, and we're working with them in an advisory capacity on digital switchover. They recognised that they were too premature on, you know, sort of digital switchover without thinking about actually what that would mean for rural communities. So I'm pleased to say that we are part of an advisory group to assist BT on that. But there's also Broadcast 2040, who are campaigning for the protection of Freeview, for example. Again, another really important service for many rural residents who don't have Sky packages or whatever else. And Liquid Gas, we've been working with them very much on the target for the ending of sort of fuel boilers, fossil fuel boilers in rural areas, and the deadline for that being much sooner for their switch off compared to urban counterparts. So again, really important work there that we're doing. And finally, what we do is we keep rural in the news. So as I said, we have our weekly news bulletin that goes out, but we also are really active on social media, for example, and whenever we do have research with really compelling findings, we make sure that those news outlets know about it. So for example, on this slide, you'll see the type of coverage that we got from the BBC, whether that was regional through radio, also through print, for our cost of living research that we did. The bulletin that we do, we're keen to feature members' articles as well as national news stories. So if there's anything that your local authority is doing with regards to best practice, we'd love to hear from you, because we'll be able to share that in the bulletin and share it with our 20,000 odd readers. So it's a great way of getting your voice heard and getting the needs of your council or the best practice of your council out there. And I think that's it. It's a whistle-stop tour of what we do at the Rural Services Network. But if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to take them.